There you are. Welcome to Zen Fits here in Blackstone. Excuse me, Blackstone, Virginia. I got my mic on. Here at the center of the world. Well, there's a county that I live in, Nottoway County. It was named after the Nottoway Indians who lived here before the English settled. And the county next to us is Brunswick. And Brunswick is the home, they say, of the Brunswick Stew. There's a little war going on, I think, between Brunswick in Georgia and Brunswick here in Virginia. But nevertheless, Brunswick Stew is a ritual here. And I find it very interesting. Basically, it's a big pot brewed by men, usually at the roadside under a tent. And the recipe is secret. And it's always been kind of like a joke, a running joke, that the Brunswick Stew is so good because they put roadkill in it. But and the Brunswick Stew is usually sold for fundraisers like the Rotary does it here. And they stay up all night cutting. They get the other people come in to help cut, and they cut up the ingredients, and they cook it all night in this big pot, and then it's served like manna, like the host of the Eucharist, where the people will come by and take home their quart of Brunswick Stew, and they've got it and they eat it, or they buy many and they hoard it, give me 10, and they go home and they freeze it so they can eat it during the space between the next Brunswick Stew, which maybe they only do maybe 4 times each. They don't. It's a fundraiser, so but it's a community Eucharist. It's kind of like the wedding cake. Where the wedding cake is cut up and everybody runs and gets their little piece of wedding cake and they take it home and the bride freezes a piece, and the wedding cake is kind of like a sacrificial meal, that heals the family and restores life, you see. So the Brunswick Stew, to me, has that taste of a sacrificial food that restores the community, and other. My mind rambles, and I connect dots. So there's a witch's brew. Now that's kind of like a dark Brunswick Stew. You get some old hags around there in a big pot, throwing stuff in. What do they throw into it? Owl's legs and frog stomachs and all these ingredients, to make this magical stew, that will grant your wishes, so this whole idea of this, and cannibals, there's another one. You got a big pot and they throw the explorer into it. They got a lot of jokes about you sitting in a pot being cooked, by the cannibals. That used to be a popular myth, in bygone days. But all of them seem the same kind of stew, the same kind of magic, the same kind of mystery. What's in that pot? What are they putting in there, And so this, and then Chinese cooking. So I watch TikTok before I go to bed, and I get, for me, TikTok is kind of like a stew. TikTok throws stuff in there, and I don't know what's coming, but they throw a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of news, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of the documentary, but they're throwing a lot of Chinese cooking. And it can be live, Chinese cooking live, so you just sit there and you watch Chinese cook. It is like Brunswick Stew. You got this big, it's a wok, but it's a big pot thing, and it's under a hot flame. I mean, they got a burner, they got a gas burner that's got 3 layers that comes up like a volcano, like they're cooking over a volcano, and they just throwing shit in there, and they stir it up real fast, and they throw it in, they stir it up, throw it in, stir it up. You don't know what it is they're throwing in there. They stir it up, and they stir it up, and they keep going, or the flame will burn it, you know. So it's cooked on a volcano. And throw it in, and they serve it. People stand in line to get it. Oh, that's so good, you see. What's going on here, metaphorically speaking? What's going on with the Brunswick Stew? Well, metaphorically, you know, I think metaphorically. So the metaphorical Brunswick Stew uses everything in your life it finds. A dead squirrel, a dead dog, a dead buzzard, a dead rabbit on the road. Doesn't make any difference. Vegetables, you cut it all up and you throw it in and you cook it over a big pot with a hot flame, you see. And you cook it. And, the idea is that you throw everything into it. You don't select. You don't say, oh, this is no good. No, throw it in. You don't have any prejudice. You don't have any bias. You don't really have any recipes. You're kind of like MacGyver. I know the Brunswick Stew has a recipe, but we're speaking metaphorically here, where you just use what's available. MacGyver uses, you remember the TV show? MacGyver uses what's available to get out of a fix. This is integrative thinking, integrative mind, inclusive mind. You use everything to make your stew. You don't say, this is no good, that's no good. You use everything. It's inclusive. It's integrating. It's creative. It's creative in that it uses what life gives. It uses what's available without discrimination, without prejudice, without correct thinking, without recipes and formulas, without discrimination. You integrate. Everything is useful to the Brunswick Stew. So in your life, the living Brunswick Stew is, of course, you. So if you're feeling blue, use that in the stew. If you're feeling negative and hopeless, you throw that in the stew. If you're feeling useless and worthless and no good and nothing works, throw that in the stew. You see, everything is useful in life. In your life, everything is useful in your life to make your Brunswick Stew, the witch's brew, you see. And I just got to thought, you know, the whole idea of this woke, oh, he's woke, you know. Well, the woke cook with a wok. You throw everything into it. And when you throw everything into your stew, everything into your life, everything is useful. Everything is given by the grace of God. Everything is useful. Don't divide, don't split up. Don't be exclusive. Oh, don't fragment the world. Make the world whole. You make your world whole by using everything that comes to you, positive and negative. The Brunswick Stew is beyond good and bad, beyond recipes, beyond useful and useless, you see. The Brunswick Stew is magic. The Brunswick Stew is you. Be magical. Be creative. Throw it in there. Throw it in there. Cook it up. Serve it. And the people will come like they come to the Eucharist. You'll be serving the host of God. Thanks for dropping in.